All right, this is an instructional video for the butchering of chicken for a variety of recipes that we might be doing in class. We're gonna give you the overview of all the equipment you need for proper setup, butchering, cleanup, including sanitizing. All right, I already have a scale off to the side with a bowl on top that when I put the dial, I turn it to 0, so I've got my net weight. The product we're working with today is actually boneless, skinless chicken breasts. Tend to put that into a bag to kind of protect it from other things when I get it at the store. Everything to do with raw chicken is yellow in color as far as the bust tubs and the cutting boards. Okay, these are boneless, skinless chicken thighs. The sell by is January 27th, 2023. Today is the Sunday before that, so whatever the math is on that, don't have a problem touching my watch right now. Sunday the 22nd. All right, so we're 5 days before. Okay, this bust tub actually has holes in it, so it's kind of like a colander of sorts. So depending on what's going on inside this package, sometimes the chicken can be kind of have some juices and all. This has never been frozen at this point. Sometimes we do have to buy frozen products. All depends on what's available in the store. And I'm going to be touching everything, you know, both hands touching chicken and all, but for this moment I'm trying to be primarily just using my left. I do have gloves on. Still have to wash my hands when I'm done with this process, but kind of just keeping the mess off my direct hands. All right, packaging sometimes have is an absorbent pad inside. This sort of packaging going into large garbage can. All right, so like we're saying, this is thigh meat, so it's a darker meat because more developed muscle. I'm gonna be cutting these up into pieces that are about a 1/2 inch size. There is some fat on here, so I'm gonna trim that off. And I'm gonna have you guys, when you trim this up, do keep the fat off to the side. Okay, so our target weight today, we're gonna be either using a pound for this one recipe, say, or a 1.5 pounds. So we'll give you a little bit over. So a pound exactly is 16 ounces. Okay, so if we got right at 16, because we're gonna lose some fat, we might give you about 18 before we trim it up. Okay, and what I want you guys to be mindful of is this cutting board is contaminated. So the only thing that's going to go onto this cutting board is raw chicken. Anything else in the kitchen shouldn't get set on this cutting board. So like, for example, this bowl going on the cutting board be perfect example, cross-contamination going to elsewhere on the counter. All right, so the chicken thigh itself, even though it says it's boneless, skinless, I obviously don't see any skin. I should be looking around for any sort of bone, and boom, wouldn't you know, there we have it. So this is like, looks like part of a ball and socket from a hip joint. So that is a little bone off to the side. So don't just start cutting it up. Do take a little feel through to see that you don't have any cartilage or bone pieces. All right, we have a decent amount of fat there, so that's something to perhaps trim off. Be careful as you're working towards your hand. This amount of fat I'm gonna leave be. Okay, so you can cut a piece down. This is about 1/2 to 3/4 inch across. You can cut a piece down and then cut it up into cubes, kind of more using the tip of the knife and the fat part of the knife. Or you could take all the pieces and trim all the fat off and then go from there. So either way, we do want to not cut every single small little piece of fat off that we're able to. That's just extra time that we shouldn't have to use, and also fat is flavor. So this particular dish, and I'll use this video for other applications, is going to be perhaps orange chicken or General's chicken, so something that's fried, and so I don't want the meat to dry out, so I do go for the thigh meat. A little less likely to dry out from the frying process. Okay, so I'm cutting these into strips and then cross-cutting them, so I'm getting pieces that are bite size, this size. All right, now the fat that I'm trimming off, if I find some, okay, like this little piece, that's fine. I want you guys to keep, because we're gonna do something with that. In the same way that hog fat, lard, okay, hog fat can be rendered down to become lard. We can take chicken fat and cook it down and become something known as schmaltz. which is like chicken form of lard. So for various applications of people who don't eat, say, pork, but want some fat, you get the fat from the chicken. Now we're not going to find such amount of fat from the use of chicken breast. All right, so we're making ourselves a nice little pile here. These are all bite size. Okay, like we said, about 3/4 inch up to an inch at the most. That gets a little bit large. This little bit of fat here, sure I could trim that off, but I really shouldn't see, you know, any lean going with that. And you have a piece that's extra thin, then perhaps that's going to just be a little bit more like 1 inch across, but it's thinner. Okay, so the total mass of meat is about the same. All right, my last little bit of fat. And we're hoping for a net pound. So we'll go ahead and throw that in the scale to see what we have. So again, my right hand's been around the chicken, so it's not entirely guaranteed that it's clean, but I'm primarily using my left hand for grabbing stuff up. And we're at 16, so about 17.5 ounces, and that's gonna be okay. So that is my chicken. All right, so again, it can go on the board, don't put the bowl on there. Now we gotta talk about packaging that up. All right, so now when it comes to packaging it up, depends on how quickly we're going to be using this chicken meat. This is a smaller Cryovac bag that if we were doing all our butchering for maybe later in the week, maybe had to freeze this, would potentially go. You're going to want to have a partner for this so that you don't make a mess on the outside. And again, we don't want to put anything down on the cutting board. But we could potentially put this in, okay, and then seal this up, okay, depending on what we're doing. Or for this amount of meat, a quart bag should be fine, okay, from a Ziploc. So again, we don't want to get mess on the outside. So with my right hand, that's a little bit, hopefully coordinated to do that. I could open that up and put that in. Okay, we got to label this because depending on what's going on with the recipe, some of you guys may use a pound of meat, some of you guys may have closer to 1.5 pounds. Depends on how many people in your group and what the recipe is. Okay, but we definitely want this to be in something that we can get kind of sealed, somewhat airtight so that it doesn't dry out and get kind of a crust on it inside the fridge. All right, so that is my packaged up meat. Before I even start my cleanup, I definitely want to get my fat into something that's going to go into the fridge. This touched the cutting board, so it's going to get tossed. And before I start the cleanup, this other meat that I took out of the package, that needs to go into the refrigerator right away. All right, now it's time for us to go ahead and wash and sanitize our knife that was used for butchering. First thing I'm going to want to do is wash up my hands. Even though I had gloves on, my hands themselves potentially got contaminated. As hot as water as I can stand. And then my knife itself, remember that everything that had to do with raw chicken is yellow in color, so we have these special brushes that are dedicated to things to do with raw chicken. Scrub brushes. So definitely do not want you using that silver scrub pad, Brillo pad that you used to. You're going to have raw chicken in it. At the end of the day, these brushes go through the dishwasher to get themselves washed and sanitized as well. And you can imagine that once I rinse this off, there is going to be raw chicken bacteria in our prep sink. Okay, which is why we don't, look to eat out of there. Okay, so there are two ways that we can sanitize things, as you guys recall from your food safety training, and that's either through heat or chemical. So this got washed with soap. That, in theory, got all the bacteria off, if not all of it. It's what we do at home, but to be even more safe, we use this special sanitizer. Okay, may not be able to read it. It's a teaspoon of the concentrate with 2 cups of water, and I make that. Okay, and we spray this down generously. All right, and then this thing just air dries off onto one of our black mats. Okay, so we do not rinse that any further. We just let that air dry. And then that's how that got sanitized. All right, now we're going to talk about the process of washing these cutting boards properly and with the sanitizing. All right, so yeah, raw chicken there, not so good. Okay, but we're going to be limited to the left sink with the sprayer. So you coming back to do other dishes, I need you to let them have the priority for that. Okay, and again, that yellow scrubber, there was just really one surface that had chicken on it. So dedicated yellow brush. Okay, but again, keep the sink on the left dedicated just to the chicken cleanup, so that we have one sink that's contaminated with the chicken. All right. We have our blue pegboard that you guys should be familiar with for doing cutting boards. But what's unique about this arrangement is we have to skip in between. All right. What's unique about this arrangement is we have to skip in between. So there's one here, and then there's an open spot before another one and another one. And we're going to do this twice. Once it's going to get done, and then for the second cycle, I'll tilt them this way and wash them again. And again, we sanitize things with either chemical or heat. We use chemical with the knives. For the cutting boards, we can use heat because the rinse water is 185 degrees. So I'm going to put that in and go ahead and start the load. And at the end of the cleanup of all the cutting boards, as you can imagine, there's going to be raw chicken contaminating the sink. There's that piece of bone. So with a bench scraper, I'm going to go ahead and scoop that up to get that thrown away. Go through the dishwasher when we're done. But you do need to wash this sink. So this yellow's got to get washed in the dishwasher. As we said, we don't want these to get used with the knives, but we do have to use one of them to basically wash the sink, and then that will go through the dishwasher at the end of everything. So this is how we'll get our sink washed at the end of all the cleanup from the butchering. All right. So this is going to go into a cycle as well. Some hot water. Rinse off the sink. Doing the same process of what you saw here in this sink with the sinks that have the knives in them for washing. All right, and it happens to be that the cycle of cutting boards is just about done. So let's make sure we're all clear on that. For the second cycle, push them this way, run them again. They get washed with soap. They get run through the dishwasher twice. All right, now this has been done twice. Go ahead and lift this out, put it over the side. Talk about that in a moment. But you can see that we have our 2 yellow brushes and the silver from the sink and the bowls we use for cleaning the chicken and all that. That's got to go through twice. We do have other yellow boards that we use sometimes for big projects. They're much bigger than what we have standard use. They will not fit in the dishwasher, so we have to use these, and they got to get washed by hand, hot soap and water, rinse, and sanitized with a chemical only. Now that these have been through the dishwasher twice, these ones, they do not need to be sprayed with that chemical at all. They got sanitized with the heat. The final steps of cleanup would be to clean, rinse, and then spray sanitizer spray in the sink where you wash the knives and the prep table where you did your butchering.